Tottenham finally look to be opening their checkbook as they make a last-minute attempt to gazump Brentford for one of the country's most exciting young players. Meanwhile, Newcastle have been selling some of their young academy talent left, right and centre in an attempt to comply with profit and sustainability rules. And I'll give you my thoughts on England somehow grabbing victory from the jaws of defeat in yesterday's game against Slovakia, taking them through to the last 8 of the European Championships. All this and more in today's episode of Daily Premier League Transfer News with me, Barnaby Slater. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Just very quickly, please give this video a like. Press subscribe if you don't already, and you will get daily Premier League transfer news, news from further afield, managerial news, and everything every single day into your YouTube channel. Also, if you want to listen to this as an audio podcast, just go over to wherever you listen to your podcast, type in the Spurred On podcast, you'll find me there. And you can become a member. Just £1 a month helps me support the channel, or helps support me to make the channel. All the details in the description box. But let's get on with it. And starting, of course, with Tottenham Hotspur. And finally, obviously we got Timo Werner through the door at the beginning of the transfer window, but finally it seems like the wheels are in motion for us to spend a bit of money. And maybe not surprisingly, based on a lot of the transfer deals we've done over the last few windows, it is young, exciting, versatile talent that we're looking to bring in. Here's the story. Basically, over the weekend, Archie Gray, Leeds' right-back centre midfield talent, he had gone down south to Brentford to have a medical, as Brentford and Leeds tried to thrash out the kind of finality of terms to make that deal happen. However, it was reported by David Ornstein just yesterday that that deal between Brentford and Leeds had collapsed, apparently over the payment terms, which I think was that they were offering something around £30 million with £5 million on top, or it might have been 35 million with 5 on top, depending on which reports you read. And Leeds said, no, that is not acceptable to us, at which point Tottenham started sniffing. Obviously, Archie Gray is a talent that we've been looking at for apparently around a year and a half in terms of scouting, and he has that versatility that Ange Postecoglou loves. Like I said, he can play right back, he can play central midfield, very comfortable on the ball, loves taking it on the half turn, absolutely perfect for Ange's style of play. And looks like Tottenham have gazumped Brentford coming in. They're trying to kind of finalise the terms for that deal themselves now. I think if Leeds thought that they had difficulties agreeing on something with Brentford for the signing, then they're probably going to have a horrible few days with Daniel Levy, I would have thought. He'll probably lower the offering fee just after they've accepted it. But yeah, 18 years old, from Leeds, very exciting. And according to David Ornstein and Ali Gold, it looks like it is getting closer and closer and closer. Okay, also reports over the last few days that Tottenham are still interested in signing Youssef Fofana from Monaco. AC Milan are also interested in him, but Spurs are prepared to wait in the background in case that deal doesn't come off. That's according to Sky Sports. Fofana, French international, another exciting midfielder. Again, Spurs, it seems like kind of trying to get deals done now. Now that countries are kind of dropping out of the Euros, it's getting close. I think pre-season training starts this week. I mean, it's July now, so yeah, always. I know it's starting this week. I'm not sure exactly which day, and they will be looking to get Ange Postecoglou the players he wants, to give them a proper pre-season, trying to understand his style of football. Another player that we're being linked with is the very exciting Hull City winger Jadon Philogene. Really exciting, so exciting. I don't even know how to pronounce his surname. Is it Philogene? Is it Philogene? Let me know in the comments how to pronounce it. But I've watched a fair bit of his clips, which obviously can always be dangerous. But he's a very exciting winger, likes to drop a shoulder, isn't afraid to kind of take on 2 players at a time, allowing space for other players on the team. And Barcelona have recently been linked with him amongst other Premier League clubs as well as Spurs. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Another rumour that won't go away is Albert Gudmundsson from Genoa. Apparently we remain in the... This is from an Italian website, in the front row to potentially pick him up. For me, that's just another story about a potential number 9 we're trying to get in. It will all depend on whether Richarlison stays at the club. And if you've been watching Tottenham Hotspur's social media clips, then you'll see that Richarlison has been at the training ground for quite a while, getting fit again after his injury at the end of last season, and he looks motivated. And as I've always said, I think if we make the chances for Rishi, he will score the goals. We just need to get him back and firing and confident. Also, there's a growing feeling, according to Alistair Gold, that Tottenham could get Jacob Ramsey from Aston Villa if they are willing to bid around £50 million. Young, talented midfielder, doing well at Aston Villa, doing well in their Europa Conference League run, and in the Premier League. Exciting young English talent, homegrown player. So realistically, if you're looking to buy homegrown players, you're not getting anyone from the Premier League for less than 50. Especially if you look at, Archie Gray, a British player, looking to have to pay £35 million. He's never played in the Premier League before. So that is the tax you have to pay. And if Spurs are willing to go there, then all the talk is that maybe Jacob Ramsey could make his move from the Midlands to Tottenham Hotspur. Marcus Edwards, obviously the ex-Tottenham Academy talent, dubbed the mini Messi by Maurizio Pochettino when he was in the academy, but Pochettino also talked in his book about him having potentially some behavioural issues. Well, he's done really well since he's been at Sporting Lisbon. Apparently, Crystal Palace have been interested in him, bringing him back to the Premier League, but Marcus Edwards is not excited about joining Oliver Glasner's Selhurst Park side. He's more enticed by the prospect of a move to Tottenham Hotspur, back to Spurs. He has been on our list. Obviously, he is a club-trained player. We are lacking club-trained players as we go into a Europa League challenge next season. So that is an attractive possibility for Spurs. But also because Tottenham apparently still have a 35% sell-on cut on Marcus Edwards. Sporting apparently value him at £15 million. So potentially a fee of around £10 million could get him to Spurs. More academy product news. Mikey Moore, our great young midfield hope, who's been on the bench a lot for the first team this season, despite the fact that he's only kind of 16, 17 years old. He's got some minutes as well for Tottenham this season. But apparently, Borussia Dortmund are doing Borussia Dortmund things, which is they look over at England, they look over at some of the top academy products in the country, and they try and get them away before they get many Premier League minutes, before their kind of value goes up so much that it would become basically an amount of money that Borussia Dortmund couldn't afford to pay. They obviously did it with Jude Bellingham, and apparently they're interested in Mikey Moore. He scored 14 goals and 8 assists and gave 8 assists in 12 appearances for the under-18s last season. He plays for the England unders team, did really well in the latest tournament there, and Borussia Dortmund are sniffing around. What kind of money, Spurs fans, would you accept for Mikey Moore? I'll tell you why it's interesting, because I'll talk later in this episode about some of the other transfer deals that have been done over this weekend because of the Profit and Sustainability Rules deadline, which was late last night. And there have been players who have been going for upwards of 30 million who've never played a Premier League minute. So Mikey Moore, big talent. I think for Daniel Levy to let him go to Borussia Dortmund, unless it was on loan, would have to be an absolutely huge amount of money. Back to the Riccardo Calafiori rumour. He is interesting. Juventus, Spurs, Liverpool, Arsenal and Chelsea. Italy now, of course, out of the European Championships. Very disappointing loss for them. So Calafiori will be looking to try and make his future clear very soon. I said it last week, 40-odd million pounds for potentially a fourth choice defender. I'd love Spurs to do it, but I'm not sure that the hierarchy would be willing. Meanwhile, the latest on the Conor Gallagher rumour, according to Tom Allnut, Spurs highly unlikely to meet Chelsea's £50 million valuation of Conor Gallagher. I wonder if Spurs right now will be asking Chelsea to lower that valuation after he had that start for England the other night against, I think it was against Slovenia, was it? Anyway, the last group game, and he only lasted 45 minutes after starting that game. He was pulled off the pitch by Gareth Southgate after 45 minutes. Apparently, Spurs have received a verbal offer for Joe Rodon from Ipswich. Obviously, Ipswich are now in the Premier League. Nothing formal or submitted in writing yet, but Leicester and Leeds also still after the Wales defender, who did so well at Leeds last season. He apparently is currently abroad at a training camp. This is some money that Tottenham can definitely get through the door, and if I were them, I'd be looking at getting 10 million, maybe 10 to 12 million for Joe Rodon. I don't think he's quite got the ball-playing capacity to be an Ange Postecoglou centre-back, and it's never really worked out for him at Spurs. Obviously, he was bought for a decent chunk of money a few years ago, and he was a talented player, but for me, he just looks always slightly uncomfortable on the ball, slightly cumbersome, not kind of fleet-footed enough. And that's why I don't think it's going to work for him at Spurs. But in terms of him being a really good stopper, a really good centre-half, a great defender, someone who puts his body on the line, good in the air, you can see why clubs like Ipswich, Leicester, Leeds are interested in him. Tottenham are apparently set to trigger an option to extend Son Heung-min's contract. to make it go up to 2026. So 2 more years from now. That's a no-brainer for me. I've said it time and time again. Keep him at the club forever. Give him an ambassadorial role. Make him a coach. I never want to see him leave our football club. He's the face, and he is a leader, and he is still an expert finisher. Radu Dragushin, Tottenham's centre-half, but who has also done excellently for Romania in these Euros. He's talked about his 2024 so far. He says, I certainly grew a lot, and I went to Spurs where it's another world where you just have to learn. But I want to grow further and achieve higher goals. I think we're going to see Dragushin play a lot in the first team next season, and maybe he can really push Romero and Van de Ven for starting places, particularly in the Europa League. I can see him starting very often in Europa League. And of course, one thing that Dragushin does have that we're lacking is the ability to attack defensive set pieces and crosses. He loves getting his head on the ball, and we were not great at that last season. According to Tom Allnut, again, Spurs will consider significant offers for both Richarlison and Yves Bissouma during this transfer window. So let's see what happens. Obviously, if we get Archie Gray in, who can play in that Yves Bissouma role, loves to drop the shoulder, make turns away from the high press of any opposition team, then maybe that would allow Yves Bissouma to potentially lead. But I still think, let me know what you think in the comments, I think Yves Bissouma is still a great player. It's just about, feels to me almost like his motivation levels. He's a bit streaky. He'll go on a run of 6-7 great games and then get suspended or injured, and then it takes him quite a long time to get back. If he's at his best, I don't think there's any player to play as good as him to play in that kind of number 6 position, getting the ball off the keeper, getting the ball off the centre halves, turning the press, breaking forward 15-20 yards, linking in triangles with his fellow midfielders. I love that about Bissouma, but we just didn't see nearly enough of that in the back end of last season. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg apparently has 4 clubs interested in him, including Atletico Madrid and Napoli. Meanwhile, Tottenham are not looking to sell Jamie Donnelly, one of our other academy talents, a kind of attacking midfielder, number 10, very exciting young player, not looking to sell him permanently this summer. However, growing likelihood, according to Ali Gold, that they will look to loan him out next season, possibly to the Championship, ideally, I think. They're thinking that regular first-team football will help his development and allow him to have more of a chance of getting into the first team maybe the season after. I was impressed by Donnelly from the little I've seen of him in the academy, but also when he got a few minutes, he came on at the Etihad, if my memory serves, last season. One thing I'm a bit worried about him, though, is he doesn't look like he's the quickest player. And sometimes, if you're not the strongest, you need a bit more pace to kind of beat a man and get past a press. So I'll be interested to see if Donnelly can add a little bit of pace to his game. One player who wasn't the quickest either back in the day was Harry Kane. And I saw an interview with an ex-player who said he saw Harry Kane training one day, and he said, you need to kind of work on your pace. And apparently Harry Kane said, well, how do you work on your pace? I didn't know you could. And he said he was given the advice by this ex-pro, an ex-striker. I can't remember who it was. I can't remember. I think it was an ex-West Ham striker, but from really back in the day. Anyway, he said, buy yourself some running spikes and just run on the grass, sprinting back and forth over and over again, and it'll help to teach your muscles how to sprint quicker. So, I don't know, Jamie Donnelly could maybe work on his pace. Rodrigo Bentancur a few days ago came on in the final minutes of Uruguay's win against Bolivia and actually scored a goal. So that's good, a bit of positive news for Bentancur after some of the kind of slightly grotty stories that came out about his very ill-judged joke about Heung-min Son and East Asian people in general. We need some more positive news about Bentancur. He's apologised. You know, he's made a mistake, but yeah, not great. Anyway, obviously I'm getting into now the realm of the other transfer news from around the Premier League and elsewhere. As I mentioned, it was the deadline for clubs to get their books in to make sure that they are complying with profit and sustainability rules. That was last night. So a lot of stories were doing the rounds over the weekend. One was that at one point Newcastle were looking to sell Anthony Gordon to Liverpool. And that one then dropped out because Liverpool weren't interested. They felt that they had too many players in those kind of positions. If you think of Gakpo, you think of Harvey Elliott, you think of all those players who can play out wide for Liverpool. But I was wondering at the weekend, could Spurs kind of pinch in and try and get Anthony Gordon for like £70 million? We were interested in him before he moved to Newcastle. I think his wages might have been a bit of an issue. But obviously Newcastle have now found ways to sell other players to comply with those rules. They were also talking at one point about selling Alex Isak as well. But I'll talk more about those Newcastle sales. Man United are looking to move for Matthias de Ligt from Bayern Munich this summer. He's surplus to requirements at Bayern Munich because Eric Dyer's done such a good job there. Not something I ever thought I'd hear out loud, and I'm sure a lot of you fans who really didn't like Eric Dyer. I never hated Eric Dyer. I think he's a good player, good pro, but, you know, a bit streaky and has the odd off game. But really highly rated since he moved to Bayern Munich on a free from Spurs on loan. Meanwhile, Paris Saint-Germain apparently looking to sign Marcus Rashford from Manchester United, and he's open to joining them. He's had a bad season at Man United, and of course, along with Jadon Sancho, with Erik ten Hag staying there and about to sign, in fact, I think he's just signed a new kind of multi-year contract, Rashford, I think, will probably be thinking, is there space for me at Man United? Can I get my form back there? And maybe a move to PSG where he could take over the mantle from Kylian Mbappe. Both similar players, love to play off the left and can play as the 9 as well. That could be a move that suits him. Meanwhile, Mason Greenwood is looking apparently to prefer a move, to Marseille over some of the other options he has. He's 22 years old now. He's been linked with Juventus, Lazio, Napoli, Valencia and Benfica, but prefers the idea of a move to Marseille and potentially a link up with Roberto De Zerbi, the ex-Brighton coach. Apparently, Manchester City failed in a late move to hijack Michael Olise's move to Bayern Munich from Crystal Palace. That's not a huge surprise to me because I think they were in for Olise last summer as well. Bit of a surprise one coming up this weekend. Leicester, they were, of course, having to... they're really struggling to comply with these profit and sustainability rules because of the last time they were in the Premier League. They ended up selling Keenan Dewsbury Hall to Chelsea over the weekend. Deal valid until 2030. And of course there he's reunited with his coach, former coach from Leicester, Enzo Maresca. A fee of £30 million. A lot of money, but he is a talented player. As I mentioned, Newcastle have had to make some sales. They've sold Elliot Anderson, one of their academy products, for £30 million to Nottingham Forest. Such a huge sum of money for a player who's played, you know, only a season or so at Newcastle and wasn't always a starter. It's a good signing for Forest, I think. He's apparently got 50% higher wages there. But Newcastle having to sell academy products. And that is, of course, pure profit. So they can put that £30 million straight into the books to cover any profit and sustainability rules holes that they've got, whereas Nottingham Forest can use amortization and spread that £30 million over the length of his contract. Meanwhile, Chelsea apparently are interested in Nottingham Forest 21-year-old Brazilian defender Murillo. Spurs have been interested in Murillo as well. Really good on the ball, very exciting player. Loves taking players on, like proper kind of old school Brazilian centre-back. Very exciting. Meanwhile, Chelsea could offer English centre-back Trevor Chalobah as part of any deal for Murillo. Chelsea, as I mentioned loads of times, just trying to buy everyone. In fact, this weekend they actually made a sale. Amari Hutchison from Chelsea to Ipswich, £22 million, no buyback clause for Chelsea. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. Chelsea also still looking to get a full amount of £37 million from anyone if they want to buy Romelu Lukaku. He's had a real fail in his latest move to Chelsea and was kind of sent out on loan. And AC Milan and Napoli are hoping that Lukaku's price drops before they're willing to put in a bid. Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain are hoping to get Julian Alvarez from Manchester City this summer. Aston Villa, of course, finally have completed that deal for Chelsea left-back Ian Maatsen. £35 million again. One thing you can say about Ian Maatsen, though, he did do incredibly well at Borussia Dortmund, helping them to get to that Champions League final. Also, the Douglas Luiz deal from Aston Villa to Juventus has gone through. This, again, all to do with profit and sustainability rules, them having to comply with that and make that sale. And then the maddest one, I think, let me know what you think in the comments, but Brighton have signed Yankuba Minte from Newcastle for £30 million. 19 years old, he's a forward. He signed a contract till June 2029. Another example of Brighton looking for young, exciting talent, willing to invest there. And their sporting director said the following: Yankuba is a young talent that has attracted a lot of interest, so we're delighted to welcome him to the club. That's David Weir, the Brighton technical director. The reason I think this is so fascinating and mad and shows kind of how much teeth these profit and sustainability rules are having is that Yankuba Minte has not played a single first team minute for Newcastle United. They've never seen him play for the shirt. He's been at Feyenoord, he's been on loan, and Brighton have snapped him up. They only signed him, actually, Newcastle, back in 2023. So really fascinating that so much money is crossing hands between teams for players who've never played a single minute for the club. Over to West Ham, there's a swap deal going on potentially between Kyle Walker-Peters and Flynn Downs. Sorry, not a swap deal, with Southampton. It's being discussed. It is a swap deal, sorry. Concrete possibility, according to ex-West Ham United employee who's, if you don't know much about West Ham, he is a real insider. He has a podcast and used to work at the club and knows a lot of what's going on. Apparently, Kyle Walker-Peters is quite keen to go to West Ham. Disappoints me as a Spurs fan because I kind of hoped we might bring him back to the club because he's got such adaptability. He's a trained, club-trained player, and I think we could have got him for relatively cheap. But I have to say, I don't know why he would join Spurs over a club where he can get first team football guaranteed. However, to see him over in the claret and blue, not ideal. Meanwhile, West Ham are willing to pay £35 million for Wolves' Max Kilman. That's a deal, a rumoured deal that won't go away. But Wolves want £45 million for him. West Ham have also made a move for Olympique Lyonnais centre-back Jack O'Brien. And also going across London at Fulham, Bayern Munich have made a final offer of between £38 and £39 million for João Paulinho. And he is desperate to go there. So surely that deal will finally get done. More talk on Tammy Abraham, who was being linked with Spurs a few weeks ago. Now AC Milan are interested in taking him from Roma, so let's see what happens there. Meanwhile, Juve are interested in Atalanta forward Ademola Lookman, who of course did so brilliantly in that Europa League final, scoring a hat-trick, but he's never really made it in the Premier League, so it looks like he's going to stay in Europe. Jonathan Tah looks like he's leaving Bayer Leverkusen to move across to Bayern Munich. And Barcelona apparently unlikely to move for Joshua Kimmich, with Everton's Belgian international Amadou Onana and Mikel Merino, who plays for Real Sociedad, the preferred options for Barcelona's midfield. I said at the top I would talk a little bit about England's 2-1 win over Slovakia yesterday. Look, a lot of people will say, and Gareth Southgate will certainly say, I'm through to the quarterfinals. You just have to find ways to win these games, but it was horrible. Like, I cannot see why for 4 games running, Southgate is sticking with just the same team, just replacing one midfielder. Kobe Mainoo came in yesterday. I thought he did well, but the disconnect between England's midfield and attack is humbling, frankly, by which I mean in a bad way. Also, the fact that our fullbacks, Kyle Walker's form has dropped off madly, and Kieran Trippier refuses to play anything down the line. And as a result, incredibly easy to defend against. And it was just so turgid. The whole game was so static. And in the end, of course, Jude Bellingham got us out of a massive hole with an incredible clutch overhead kick with just, I think, like 30 or 40 seconds to go. Heartbreaking for Slovakia. And then, of course, Harry Kane did Harry Kane things, scoring the winner 2-1. And then, actually, even after we scored the second, England did Gareth Southgate stuff and just dropped onto the edge of their 18-yard box and almost like called the opposition on. So, do I hold great hopes for England to go much further? I think Switzerland will be a very difficult game, but Southgate will say, just getting us through, and he is. But I think bring on Cole Palmer, bring Cole Palmer into the team, bring some excitement. If we're going to lose, let's lose on the front foot. Let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Let me know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching and listening, guys. Please do drop the video a like. Press subscribe if you don't already. Become a member, only £1 a month. All the details in the description box. And have a great rest of your day. Speak to you tomorrow. Cheers. Bye.